In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert doing the podcast.
Yes, we are on a beautiful sunny Monday in Southern California.
Yep.
The sun has finally come out. I'm so excited.
And for some reason, Vanessa's got headphones on.
And I have my headphones on. I just realized I couldn't hear myself very well. Adam loves to sabotage me. So when we record the podcast, I need my headphones to listen to the guest. But obviously when there's no guest in the room and we're recording the intro, I don't need them on my head any longer. But Adam likes to just let me roll and feel stupid. And
well, you don't have to feel
not
stupid,
be able
but
to
I mean, I don't
here.
know. No. If you want to hear, or if you want to, wear your headphones, who am I to judge?
It's true. So what's new with you?
Nothing.
Nothing, huh?
I don't think so. What's new?
Yeah?
I got a new T-shirt. I do. So barbellapparel.com, I suppose.
Yes.
It's funny because they've been around, like you see barbell apparel. In fact, I've recommended them to people having never actually even worn the jeans because I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Because people who tend to lift weights, jeans don't fit.
Yeah, you have a bigger butt.
Well, you got a bigger butt,
Bigger
your quads,
legs,
your hamstring, they're just shaped differently.
Yeah, I understand this.
I know, you know this. And especially skinny jeans, if you have calves of any meaning of all, you know what I mean? Like if your calves are worth having.
Those calves have any meaning?
Those meaningful calves.
Yes.
Your skinny jeans look super weird because they're like poofy around the butt. They don't really fit right around the waist, and they're tight in the quads, loose in the knees, tight in the calves, and loose in the ankles.
Right.
And you
It's
it
awkward.
looks like you got like a bag of oddly shaped potatoes. You know what I mean? There's some's full, some's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean this is just a thing that goes on. So anyway, Barbell Apparel is a company that makes clothes specifically for people who lift weights, and they're supposed to fit some of these proportions.
Yes.
And like I said, never owned a pair in my life, and somebody from their marketing team reached out and gave me a discount and said, hey,
Will you wear our clothes?
You should wear our clothes.
Yeah.
And so I've been wearing their clothes, and they're legit.
Yeah, and they were
I like it.
and if you like them, maybe tell people about it.
Yeah,
which you're doing.
yeah, exactly, which I'm doing for the first time. And that was a super soft pitch. They're not required whatsoever, but if you like what we're wearing and you take pictures in it or whatever, then, hashtag us or whatever.
Hashtag us.
Hashtag us. Or just regular
us.
tag, I
Just
suppose.
tag us. I mean, you could hashtag them too, but...
See, this is the thing is I think I'm probably going to lose my sponsorship based on this because they're like, shit, he doesn't even know how to Instagram.
What do you mean? You have 400 followers or something.
227.
227, dude. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But those are real followers.
No, it's true. They're actual people.
They're very active and very engaged. And I mean, if those 227 people actually bought some barbell apparel, I bet your sponsor would be thrilled.
Yeah. Well, but they wouldn't. Well, yeah. There'd be no way to know that it was associated with me. It's not like I have a code or anything.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's a pretty sweet sponsorship.
Yeah.
Frankly, I get all the benefits and I don't even have to do anything about it. But here I am doing something about it.
Which is quite funny because I was talking to a good friend the other day and I was telling her how your last day of work was last Friday.
Uh-huh.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
actually your official first day of not going back is tomorrow when we
Right.
record this. So you guys will hear this about a week later. But she said to me somewhat jokingly, oh, does that mean he's going to be modeling full-time now?
Yeah.
So apparently it looks like that's the way you're trending.
And here I am in my own home wearing barbell apparel jeans and a barbell apparel t-shirt because I'm like, that's how it goes for me. I buy stuff and I wear it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's true.
So,
yes, you do. And it looks good on you.
Thanks. Yeah, the t-shirts are really nice.
They're really nice, actually. Actually, I really like the clothes, to be fair. And I'm kind of particular about what Adam wears. I'm more particular about what Adam wears than he is, which is probably not unlike most husband and wife duos.
Right.
But you do have a sense of fashion. And even if I do like it and you don't, you'll still veto me. So it's a win-win for both of us.
And it's only 50% of the time it's just spite.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really like this. And Vanessa's like, cute. I'm like, I hate it. Actually, that doesn't happen that
true. But we both agreed on the
on
cat shirt. And if you guys have ever seen the cat shirt, it's a magical piece of clothing.
It is a pretty nice cat shirt. I before the stitches come out of that. Actually, it doesn't fit so good right now because I'm putting on a little weight.
Oh.
But when I don't know, at some point when I scrawny back down, I'll start wearing it again. But I need to take some pictures of it because like you just don't find that fabric.
No, it's so good.
You know?
And we both instantly fell in love with it. So why don't you tell people why you're getting bigger?
Well, just because I'm like lifting more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're eating.
And I'm eating more.
You're doing the burner bro down.
Yes. All right. Yeah. All right. I feel like we've covered this, but I guess not everybody listens to that podcast maybe. But
just saying it's working.
Yeah. So structured eating works for me.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So if I map out what I'm supposed to eat and I prep those meals by like cooking protein on Mondays and Wednesdays, it just works.
Yeah.
Like I keep a lot more muscle mass. I'm like happier.
Yeah.
Train harder. All those things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the beefcake burner bro down is the Ben McMaster and I's own personal Vimify feed that we're training
broing down on.
Yes.
Yep. In the feed in our side yard.
Yeah, in our yard.
In our yard and in the feed. So, which leads us to the new kind of eating protocol that you're helping some folks with. You launched your personal paleo coaching. What are you calling it?
You don't know anything about this.
I'm really bad at this. What are you doing?
Well, it's the precision protocol.
Yes, precision
is what
protocol.
it is in general. But what I've launched most recently is men's and women's fat loss groups.
Right.
So it's group coaching of men on one side and women on, well, not on one side, but in one call and women in another. And really what it comes down to is that we've recognized that over the years with paleo, we've done a really good job, I think, of helping people bring more and more of the paleo concept and diet strategies and everything into their lives, which has largely been a tremendous benefit across the board. And we've also at times identified that paleo is not necessarily magic. Like just seat of the pants paleo isn't necessarily magic.
Yes.
And when we launched Vimify back in the day, and for those, or not Vimify, when we launched our program on Vimify, Unveil Your Wellness, you'll likely remember, those have been around for a long time, the sort of which paleo are you article set. And it was sort of helping people determine where they fit in this broader paleo scope or scope, whatever S word you want. And it's because what we really realized is that like there's people that just free feed paleo, just whatever. It works for them. Just eat these quality foods and their body's going to be the way that they want it to be.
Right.
And then we indicated that there was kind of a seat of the pants paleo where it's more like, all right, well, just free feed paleo wasn't really working, but I don't really want to track macronutrients and all this kind of stuff. So here's some other guidelines. And that is like palm-sized servings of protein and, the hand-based measurements that we use.
Right.
For things so there's a layer that works for folks, and then there's precision paleo, and that is a piece that we've kind of reserved for athletes or for those who are really trying to do something specific. And what we've kind of found is that we didn't really give folks like a meaningful way to move from one of those things to the other.
Right.
And we've kind of reserved the precision paleo concept for these sort of performance-based folks. And the error in that, I think, from our perspective, was that we sort of set it up as, well, you shouldn't need to do that. You know what I mean? There's like a regular old person, you should be able to do this. And that wasn't intentional. Really, what we want to articulate and what I'm trying to provide for folks now is that this precision aspect of this is it's a skill set.
Right.
It's a tool.
If you want to develop it.
If you want to develop this, and if fat loss or performance or both is something that you are striving for and haven't been able to achieve in your current, dietary strategy, then precision, you just have to get more dialed in.
Yeah,
you need to get more dialed into what's going on. And so the idea that I have about this is that you need to learn how your unique physiology works with the paleo diet, how it works with your exercise, and what you need to do in order to burn the fat.
Yep.
And that's going to be a little bit different for everybody, right? So these sort of wholesale concepts are great at catching the low-hanging fruit. But once you get beyond that, you need to get a little bit more detailed, hence the precision aspect of this.
Yeah.
So I've launched these programs, and really what it comes down to is if you're tired of doing the same thing, you know what I
Yes.
mean, with fundamentally the same result, and just wishing that something was going to be different, and that like magically your paleo will start paleoing you in the way that you want it to.
Right.
Like if you're tired of bouncing around with that, if you're tired of worrying about whether or not you should try keto, or whether you should try this aspect of paleo, or maybe it's nightshades, or you know, if you're just tired of chasing that rabbit without really having a clear plan of what to do once you catch it, then this maybe is for you.
Yeah.
So it's really an opportunity to spend some time with me to get a detailed plan, and then some group coaching with the rest of the group on how to implement that plan, and fundamentally get you the skill set required to make these adjustments to your life long term.
Right.
And it's 100% a diet. This is a tool for losing body fat. And at the end of it, my goal for you is to be self-reliant, in that you could replicate this next time you want to lose more body fat. So I'll
Right.
take you from where you are now, and over the course of 90 days, we will cut some body fat. And at the end of those 90 days, you'll be in a maintenance place where it's a little bit less structured, but you can maintain your newfound body composition for long enough such that it becomes normal.
Right.
And then if you want to approach it again, we can do it again. Right.
Yeah, and I think the important thing for people to understand here is that you don't have to lose more body fat. Like if you're
Right.
healthy and you like the way that you feel and you like the way that you look and you don't actually want to get leaner. This kind of feeds into our podcast today. We're talking about this on the podcast with Michelle Norris, who we'll introduce in a moment, but you know, you're perfectly healthy there. Like it's fine. Nobody's saying that you have to then take this to the next level. This is for the person who doesn't actually want to have that higher body fat percentage and is actually like, yeah, you know what? I'd be willing to work a little harder,
Yeah.
get a little bit more precise, you know, really dig into the details of how I'm composing my meals for a period of time to achieve that goal so that I now know how to do that.
Yep.
And I think that's a really important thing to explain to people, because we're not here to confuse you with like, wait, I thought paleo, you didn't have to count calories and the blah, blah, blah. And say, you don't. Nobody has to. You can do whatever you want. And if it's providing the result that you want it to provide, then great. Keep doing it. It's
Yep.
perfect. We love it. We love you how you are. But like for me personally, I would rather work a little harder and go through this process. And I'm actually doing it as well. And I'm leaning out and I'm doing things differently than I've been doing. I'm eating timing wise differently. I'm eating my meals differently, and it's working. And I
Yeah.
haven't actually been able to like grab a gear with that for a while, because I would just kind of, and I hovered at a decent, you know, pretty lower body fat, you could say, for the most part. You know, I'm pretty athletic, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty lean. I'm not super overweight or any of that, but this is definitely helping me to trim some of that last fat off of myself. And
Right.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and then the other piece of it too, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've heard you say this a couple times, but having the structure around the eating has normalized your cravings. It's
Oh,
normalized
totally.
some things probably around your cycle and a bunch of stuff, right? And so there's all of these
Oh, totally.
other pieces.
No,
you know?
in fact, for years, I've never really had a lot of PMS or a lot of like anything around my cycle, but I've always for years would have cramps really bad on the first day of my period. And this time, like the last couple times, completely no signs, no PMS, no nothing. And I do really think it's because of this structured eating a little bit more carbohydrate appropriately, and it just being intelligently placed for the amount of work and my workouts. And yeah, and it's also significantly changed the way that I think about my food. You know, part of what I loved about paleo is I could stop thinking about food. And so in a way, because I am eating more regularly, it's a little bit more structured. It's like opposite of starve out all day, eat 2 meals. You're actually eating more regularly. But what I'm finding is that that's actually helping me, because instead of having like these cravings of oh, should I have this, thing that I might want to eat or not? Like, you're eating so regularly, you feel so satisfied and like good all the
Right.
time. You don't even get to the cravings part. You don't even get to the place where you're like, oh, when I break my fast, then I'm going to eat this. You're just kind of like, oh yeah, just eating.
I'm just eating.
Yeah, I'm just eating. So it's been a really cool shift for me personally. And I really think that if any of this resonates with you, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Schedule
100%.
a free 15-minute call with Adam and see if it resonates with you.
Yeah, totally. And there's a link down below in the show notes. You can click on that and let's just get on the phone and see if it's the right thing, because it will undoubtedly be the wrong thing for a lot of people,
right?
But it'll also be the right thing for a lot of people. So you just got to figure out who that is. And just like Vanessa was saying, if this sounds like something that you're like, wait, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
I want some of those benefits. Or, you're just kind of tired of bouncing around and wondering what to do. Well, then let's talk about it.
Yeah, because a lot of people out there are actually like weighing and measuring and tracking, but it's like the way they're doing isn't working. So
right.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's just like for some people who aren't in that mindset, who aren't wanting to do any of that, then yeah, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But if you are, and you're already doing it, but you want it to work or it's not working as well, then it's a great idea.
Or if you don't see an exit strategy. So I don't want to go too deep on this whole thing, but but the one of the primary issues that I see with people who get a little bit more precise and start tracking macros and doing that, and whether that's like on the ketone side of things, if you're tracking your macros to be in ketosis, or if you're more on like the standard body composition shift side of things, wherever you fall in there, or if it fits your macros, whatever the different strategies, tracking your food ad nauseum forever is not sustainable.
Right.
Like it just isn't. And even if you're like, I've been doing it for years and it's great. Like imagine what else you could be doing with your time if you didn't have to worry about that, So the thing that we really want to be clear on is that this is a diet that gets you to a place, and from that place we create a new way of eating for you that is sustainable from a mental perspective and also from like just a life perspective.
Yes.
And so even if you have been, like Vanessa was saying, tracking your macros and doing this and that, and you're looking for a way to stop doing that without feeling like you're going to give up everything that you've lost.
That you gained. Yes.
Or lost.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah,
because this works. The bottom line is
totally.
if you're looking to put on muscle, talk to me about that too.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. It's just the opposite direction.
Right.
So, yeah, if any of that sounds good, click the link, schedule a free call with me. We'll talk about it for 15 minutes, determine whether or not it's a win, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, awesome. So
Cool.
Next up, we've got the incredible Michelle Norris, who's the CEO and founder, co-owner of Paleo FX. Mm-hmm. Her and her husband, Keith Norris, created this amazing event. I don't know what year they're in. I want to say they're in their 7th year.
That sounds about right.
6th or 7th year. Yeah. And, we just had the opportunity finally to go, and we got to speak at the event this year. And, we were grateful to Michelle and Keith for hosting us and allowing us to take part in that awesome event. But more importantly, I think what I love about what they're doing is that, it really resonates with us because obviously we're all about community. We're all about this lifestyle. We're all about empowering people to own their personal space and their story. And, they've really been inspired in the same way to create an event that does that. And, she'll talk about the inspiration for that event and sort of how that came about. But, I think it's just important that in this community, we support people who are doing, making big plays and really putting their quote unquote ass on the line, because it takes a lot to pull off an event like this. It is no small undertaking. And I think sometimes, we have probably another layer of respect for it, given we know what goes into something like that. And I think in this community, we can get a little flippant about things like, oh, well, we'll go next year. But, unless you kind of like really participate in these offerings, sometimes, they're not sustainable. So I think it's important that, we just as a community support each other in the offerings that are out there, and that we really as a community try to actively participate in the things that are being offered so that this movement can grow and sustain and, gain the momentum keep gaining the momentum that it has in the recent years.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Michelle has a really good way of talking about her story, and I think We've been in this business a while, and we've heard stories like hers so many times, from like how she got into paleo and how it worked for her and all this. But we don't hear very often is what she chose to do with that knowledge and understanding and experience that she gained from that. And so there's really something to be said for that. I mean, talk about saying, well, wow, I learned something here. I need to share it.
Right.
And look what she's created,
Yes.
it's inspiring.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And I think that, a lot of people in the paleo community can get inspired by that, because a lot of people do want to share it, and you're not sure how to do that in your own unique, special way. And clearly she has created that, and it's really cool. So we're really excited to host her. We've been wanting to host her since before the event, but obviously they have a crazy schedule, and it's finally come to fruition, and we're just really excited to share this conversation with you.
Yeah. And without further ado, here's Michelle. And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while, and we, got just a couple of minutes with you, of course, at Paleo FX, but, you're obviously quite busy at that event. So you don't get too much time to stop and chat and probably hang out with everyone as much as you would like to. But, what I was really struck with about you right away is that you just really seem to exude a sense of joy, and everyone around you seems just so happy to see you, and you just have this sense of exuberance about you. Have you always been that way, or is that something that you have sort of developed over time?
I would love to tell you that that's the way, that's my natural way, but my team would go, hell no, she's not like that.
What are you
Anyway,
talking about? Yeah.
So funny. Actually, it's something that I've actually had to cultivate over the last few years, is really trying to work on, the thing is that I love people, and I love being at Paleo FX. I love being able to talk to people and to see, what's happening for them and that type of thing. And I'm genuinely a very happy and upbeat and positive person. Now, having said that, when you're running a business like Paleo FX and you have all these things going on and there's all these moving parts all at one time, it's hard to not get bogged down with some of the details and get a little bit of that, joy taken zapped from you a little bit, because you're firefighting and that type of thing. The thing that's been great is over the last few years, we've been able to cultivate a great team and been able to cultivate a culture at Paleo FX that is that we're going to practice what we preach, and it's not always been that way, because when you're running a health and wellness conference, as you guys know, that when you're running it, it's sometimes you're not in alignment with what you believe, because of the fact that you have deadlines and you have people that are counting on you, and you have expectations to meet and standards to meet of what people are believe that they're coming for and what they've paid for. And so trying to deliver on those sometimes has required us to work outside of normal hours, which is not something that we made a pact 2 years ago that was going to end, and that we will not continue to do that we would, operate within what we're in alignment with and what we preach at Paleo FX, and that we're, team members are not going to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning sending out emails, and people are not going to be getting emails from us at 3 in the morning. And so it's something that's had to be cultivated. And then the other part of it too is that, working in plant medicines has been able to really help me integrate a lot of that joy on a daily basis of just accept, there's so many times where things happen to us that we're just like, oh my God, why did that happen? And blah, 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 blah. And, we can either get down about it or what have you. But one of the things that I realized very quickly in working with plant medicines is the very first lesson actually that I ever learned was that I am not in control of anything except whether or not I react or I respond to something. And response it takes intentionality. It's mindful. It's really being in the moment and understanding what's happening. And reaction is gut and is knee jerk and is usually not so pretty and clean, and usually ends up with regret. And so that's something that I've really worked on, is that, things are going to happen and I just have to be okay with it. And that, we're going to deliver the best event that we can possibly deliver. And, it's not going to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm okay with that. But, there's been times where I've just been really, really not happy at Paleo FX with things that are happening. And it made for a bad experience for me and for people that weren't around me, to be around and to have to deal with that. And so I just, like I said, I've had to cultivate that and really integrate what I've learned through plant medicines to come to that. But I appreciate so much you saying that, because it's been a lot of work. It's taken a lot of time to really get to that place.
Well, and I can appreciate that too, because I have a tendency to have that sort of perfectionist dilemma where you have this vision of what you're trying to create. And when it doesn't quite come into alignment with that, you end up feeling disappointed, even though the people around you think it's the best experience ever. Right. So, you have to find that space of being able to, find that piece of knowing that you do your best job and that it's going to still deliver, maybe not in the perfect exact way you envisioned it, but that the ethos and the essence and the intentionality of what you're creating does get delivered. And I think that's definitely the case for you and for Paleo FX.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, because it is. It's hard because I definitely have that perfectionist mentality where I am not happy if it's not perfect. And like I said, just had to really cultivate the acceptance that things are not going to be perfect and it's okay. And that, we're still going to change people's lives at the end of the day. And that's really the whole reason we do this. And so, I just have come to the conclusion that, we just do the best that we possibly can, and, and not really sweat the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to kind of step back, because we jumped right into this, which is great. But I also want to step back for audience members who maybe aren't as familiar with the event as we are. And maybe you can just tell them a little bit about Paleo FX, and also how you got started into the paleo sphere and what interests you in, this wellness world and your own personal journey.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go back quite a few years, actually. Keith decided to try out the paleo diet back, I don't even remember, 2003 or something like that, 2003 or 4. And he tried the paleo diet. He was actually online. It was back when it was dial-up. And he was online talking to Rob Wolf and Art Bainey, and they were telling him all about this paleo thing. And Keith has always been extremely interested in nutrition and how he can affect his body and, things in his body, particularly composition and that type of thing. He's been a bodybuilder for years. And so he's always dabbled in some type of nutrition or checking out different diets to see how they affect his, the way his body responds. And so he was actually talking to them about he was working with and consulting with a wrestling coach at the time. And so they were recommending that this wrestling team try out paleo. So Keith decided to try it out before he had his, moved that on to the wrestling coaching team. And so he tried it out, and he instantly felt a complete difference, because at the time he was doing the typical bodybuilder diet where you eat 6 times a day and, you're constantly in a blood sugar flux. And, we would joke around and tease him. Me and the kids would, if he was in a bitchy mood or whatever, we would ask him, are you low blood sugaring? Maybe you need to eat, whatever. Yeah. And so he was constantly in that blood sugar flux. And so, that immediately changed. And he also didn't have the fogginess from, the mental fog from changing his diet. Now, we really believed prior to going paleo that we ate a fairly healthy diet. Yes, we had refined carbohydrates in our diet, but for the most part, we ate whole foods. But I made my own pizza dough and my own pasta. So, so for us, that was healthy, of course, because it was all homemade. Right. But not realizing what damage was actually being done to our guts at the time. So he went paleo for probably close to a year before he finally convinced me that I needed to try it. My specialty as a chef was Italian. So like I said, I made my own pizza and pasta dough. And I constantly, every single time I ate, was in severe pain, had stomach cramping, felt awful, brain fog, backache, knee aches, you name it. I had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome. I had also been diagnosed with early onset rheumatoid arthritis, which ran in my family, so that made sense to me. But after, Keith was talking to Rob and to Art, and they were talking to him about celiac, and he was really concerned that I had celiac. And so, like I said, it took him about a year to convince me to try it. And literally 3 weeks after I went paleo, every symptom I had was gone. And symptoms I didn't realize I had. Because this is the thing, we get kind of stuck in this normal, what we believe is normal, because it's just the way things are, and we think that that's the way they're supposed to be. It's kind of that whole idea that when we're aging, that we're just supposed to deteriorate into, a long, drawn out, painful death, which is ridiculous. But it's funny because we start accepting a lot of these things as, well, I'm getting old, so that makes sense. When in reality, that's not supposed to be how we age, and at all how we're supposed to go. And so I noticed after I went paleo that I didn't even know that I had low back pain. Like, it was gone, and then I realized, oh, I don't have that anymore, because that became part of my normal. So it's an interesting. That was a really interesting thing. Now, I can tell you I was in utter denial, and I was really pissed off that I had to give up all these foods that I loved, and that I was, I was a food writer for quite a few websites. And even after going paleo and feeling better, I did not stop writing for them, and was still writing, typical sad standard American diet recipes along the lines of pasta and pizza and that kind of thing. So I was still writing for these websites. Another 3 weeks into paleo, this is the thing, when you are eating a typical fad diet, particularly for women, we yo-yo. So we can have anywhere from whatever size to whatever size in our closets, because that's how we operate. We're constantly going up and down that yo-yo, and you don't even notice it. It just starts happening. And what had happened is I had anywhere from a size 6 to a size 12 in my closet, and I was suddenly dropping, but I didn't really notice it and didn't really pay it, because it had happened a lot. I'd gone up and down. So I was now back into a size 6, and literally I've been paleo for 6 weeks, and we had friends and everything. Our son played select baseball, and so we hadn't seen everybody for probably about 12 weeks. And so it was the first time for them to see me in that period of time. And everybody was like, oh my God, you look amazing. What have you done? You've lost so much weight. You look so vibrant and healthy, and, whatever. And I hadn't done anything. I mean, I was just eating paleo. I was just eating the way you're supposed to eat. Right. And so that's kind of when the light bulb went off for me. And Keith says that was the day a paleo evangelist was born. I immediately stopped writing. This was the thing. I immediately realized, oh my gosh, I have information that could help people. And so I stopped writing for other people. I started my own website at that time. And it was the whole phenomenon was really interesting, because literally, like I said, all of my symptoms were gone. But like rheumatoid arthritis, anybody that knows anything about that goes into remission. It doesn't go away. I didn't have it. So my chronic inflammation had caused a false diagnosis. And so, and this is typical for a lot of people. We get false diagnoses, or we get told we have these syndromes because they really don't know what to do with them, when in reality, they are chronic inflammation in our bodies that are caused by the way that we eat and create these autoimmune disorders. And so it was just really interesting. But that's really how I ended up going paleo. And now I've been very happily paleo, and I actually prefer like, you know, zoodles and everything to actual pasta anyway. So I think it's so much better. And of course, it not only does it taste better, but it's also better for, you know, better for my body. And then, you know, what happened for, as far as Paleo FX is concerned, how we started Paleo FX was Ancestral Health Symposium, which is kind of our sister symposium, is a very decidedly academic conference. Paleo FX is decidedly not academic. And when we went to that conference the very first year, we had such a great time. We saw how amazing it was to get everybody in the space together, for one thing. But what we realized when we were leaving, Keith and I were actually sitting on the runway at LAX, and I started talking to him, and I was like, you know, what was kind of missing is all the stuff that actually tells people how to do this. Like, how do you,
the practical stuff,
put this into practice?
Yeah.
And so, so we just started talking about that, and we were like, we just kind of connected the dots, that was the piece that was missing, is this practical application of the theory. Because at the end of the day, our clients, they're happy that the science exists, but they don't really care about that. They don't really want to know about the science. What they want to know is, what do I eat, and when do I eat, and what do I lift, run, cardio, whatever, what do I do there, and how do I do that, and when do I do that? And so we just decided that there was this need for the practical application of paleo, which is why it's called Paleo FX, which is F of X, which is the practical application and function of the practical math function. So, and that's why it's Paleo FX. So we just decided that we needed this conference, and we just went out and filled the need, is what we did.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love just kind of backpedaling to part of your story where you're talking about how not only you'd lost weight, but you looked so healthy and vibrant. And I think that's the thing that often gets overlooked in this paleo story. I think that often, especially for women, again, it's a lot of times about the scale or the size dress we're fitting in or whatever. But, you know, let's not forget how important healthy is in terms of how beautiful you look. I mean, when you are healthy, you shine and you become so much more beautiful on the outside. So it's like, it's one of those things that I think is such a cool thing about the paleo diet and this way of eating, is that it's not just about losing weight. It's about how beautiful you become.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And we see this piece too, where, because I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes there's a fat loss piece that's not just accounted for just by paleo. And but what we tend to see, like with a lot of our clients, is that there's they'll keep kind of talking about that story. Like, well, I've been paleo and I feel a lot better, and this is better, and this is better, and this is better, and I don't have to go to the doctor, you know, and all these symptoms are resolved, but I'm just not quite there on the fat loss. And then after a period of time, that sometimes that just goes away, because like because the feedback that they get from the people around them is how amazing they look, even though they maybe haven't even, you know, chased that last little bit of fat loss that they thought was going to make this massive difference. And yet they're showing up as this entirely different person in the world. And which is fundamentally pretty awesome, because that, you know, as I'm sure you know, when you get into that last little bit in the fat loss place, sometimes it's you're going beyond the point of healthy. You know, and so when people can feel radiant and amazing and get that feedback in the world around them without having to chase that little bit of performance fat loss, it's like a win-win for everybody, you know?
I completely agree. And this is the thing. I think that too much emphasis is placed on the fat loss, because at the end of the day, you know, sometimes we're trying to achieve something that our body is not really capable of doing, and it's not what we're built for. And particularly women, the thing is that we're made and built to carry a lot more fat than men are, because of the fact that we have this entire reproductive process to sustain another human or multiple humans in our bodies. And the thing is that we need to really give ourselves some grace there, because the simple fact of the matter is we're made to hold that weight. And sometimes we're so much healthier if we just allow that to be what it is and not worry so much about it. So like right now I'm in menopause. I've got some weight gain that from some health issues or whatever that I had battled and was able to conquer after getting through some of that stuff. But at the end of the day, right now, just from all of the things that I've read and everything, as a woman in menopause, I'm supposed to carry an extra 5 to 10 pounds worth of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that at first I was like, I'm totally in denial, like, wait, what? No way, not going to happen. And I just like realized, you know what, that if I'm just happier, if I just accept that and I just live my life, you know, the way that I want, that I'm comfortable in my body, and that I, you know, I don't get crazy about what I eat or whatever, but I don't get down on myself if I've got that extra little bit of weight. And the thing is that I'm back pretty close to, you know, after the family reunion this last weekend, I gained a little weight, of course, but I'm definitely back close to what my typical weight was for, you know, 14 years. I didn't fluctuate, but up and down about 4 pounds. I'm within that range again. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm okay if I've got the extra 5. I'm not going to worry about that, because that's what my body is meant to do. I'm not real sure why in menopause you're supposed to carry that, but apparently it's part of the deal. So I'm like, you know, I'm just not going to get myself all concerned and worried over the fact that I'm carrying an extra 5 pounds, because apparently for some reason in our evolution, there was a reason for us to carry that extra weight. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of women, you know, it's like 5 pounds, I think is, you know, not that big of a deal. I think, you know, you could have like a extra couple meals that day or whatever, and gain that and lose that, you know, in the next couple of days. I think it's hard for women. And the one place I'll see in the paleo movement is that when they never really see that initial fat loss that you talked about, you know, when you went from a 12 to a 6, where you do see that some people in this sphere will still hover at that 12, even though all their health issues might have resolved and they might feel better and look better. There is that piece of it. So I think that might be a frustrating place for women when they're like, oh, but I see all these other women, and especially you see men, they just get shredded. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
These guys they just, you know, drip fat off of them. So I think that's the tricky spot for women. And I think that's why the keto movement has made such a, you know, huge bump in the market, because I think there is that piece of fat loss that people are still looking to get. But, you know, I think it is something that we should really be talking about. Like, what is the best way to go about that for your mental health and for your physical health? And I think that, you know, we shouldn't just necessarily just jump onto another, you know, stricter way of being again, because we are struggling with that fat loss. But that's totally a bird walk that I'm taking.
This is the thing, I hear you. And you know, this is the deal. At the end of the day, everybody's got to do their own N=1 to really achieve what's right for them. And the thing is that I really hope that women that make the decision to go into keto actually do their homework and understand how devastating that can be on your hormones. If, number one, if you are a person that shouldn't be doing keto, or number two, you're doing keto and you should be cycling, or you're doing keto completely wrong for who you are. Right. So the thing is that that's a big deal. That's one of the reasons why we held our Keto FX Summit, was to give all of that information out. But the thing is that there's so many people, I get hit up every week, which I'm sure you guys do too, is, hey, tell me about the keto diet, and, you know, how do I do that, and what do I do, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, first of all, you need to, particularly women, men are pretty, it is what it is. Men get the easy way out here a lot of times because they can do a lot of this stuff, because Keith and I joke around that men's hormones, it's like, you know, a transistor radio, there's 2 dials. But for women, we're an entire cockpit. Like, we have a whole cockpit, and all the levers and the bells and the whistles and all of the different dials all need to be in the right place for us to work properly. And the thing is that when we understand and we know and we can like hit this is one of the things, like, I'm really preaching to young women now. Girls, if you know now that your hormones are completely controlled by what you eat, start watching that now, because if you are ahead of the game, if you can start very young, and that's one of the things I wish I would have known about paleo before my girls were old enough to, their hormones to get all out of whack and to do all of that stuff. The thing is if we can have our hormones be in control from when we're very young, and if you can have your children growing up where their hormones are completely controlled because they're eating good whole foods, and they're not eating a lot of processed crap, and no extra sugar, no extra hormones, none of all of these things that unfortunately a lot of us grew up with, and now we're paying the price for that because we're learning, we're kind of trying to reverse engineer all of this and get back to where we should be. The thing is, if you can get out of that whole thing of having to try to fix something, if you can just start from the right place and have all your dials and levers all in the right places, it would be really great. The thing is that unfortunately that's not the case for a lot of us. So you've got to really do your homework and really understand where you're at hormone wise, and really be watching, how do you feel? How are you physically responding? It's great if the scale's going down, but it's not at the expense of your thyroid or at the expense of your hormones, because once those are out of whack, it really takes a lot to get them back in sync. And so you got to be really careful about what it is that you're doing. And that's the other thing is, you were talking about how some people can get all the health part dialed in, but they don't get the fat piece of it dialed in. But at the end of the day, your body is, when it is in homeostasis, it does exactly what it's meant to do. And that is, if you're supposed to be carrying extra weight, you're going to carry the extra weight. If you're not supposed to be, it will shred that weight for you. The thing is do you still, maybe you feel great, but maybe you have some underlying, this is where I am a big proponent of getting labs and knowing all of these things about ourselves. Do you have underlying viruses that are not being taken care of? Because I know that some dormant viruses that actually got kicked up from a severe mold exposure wreaked all kinds of havoc in my body. And here I was really super healthy, but I was exposed to mold, and it kicked up a virus that was sitting dormant in my body. The thing is that all of us have a lot of these things. We have dormant parasites, we have dormant viruses, we have dormant, autoimmune issues that we can put into remission, but then they can kick up if we start messing with things that mess with our hormones. So we've got to be really, really careful and make sure that we're doing our homework and that we're really tracking. I'm a big believer in tracking everything. And so everything that I do is tracked on a daily basis, because then I know whether or not, if I track my mood, I track my fatigue level, I track all of those things. And the thing is, of course, I do track my weight, but my weight is probably one of the things that I pay the least amount of attention to right now, because I'm more concerned about how am I feeling on a daily basis and how did I sleep? Because if we aren't sleeping, none of this stuff's going to work. So that's the other thing is, dial in your sleep, man. That's the first thing. Even if you're feeling better, sometimes you're not losing weight because you're not sleeping.
Oh, for sure. This is I love everything you just said.
Yes.
and it's actually, I was pleasantly surprised with the balance of information that was provided at PaleoFX this year regarding keto, because it really has become just a hot button again. But the panels and the various the speakers and things, it was very well curated to give what I think is like a very balanced, prospect of like what's going on within keto. And what you're saying is exactly right, that so many people are doing it wrong one way or the other, whether they just didn't do the research or it's just not right for them, or they're not tracking something. They're just not going down these paths. And we always feel like we're a little alarmist because we're always saying like, hey, you might really screw yourself up doing this. And people are like, well, it's just eating and this and that. And you're like, yeah, but these are the external inputs. This is how you manipulate the cockpit, is through what you're eating and how you're sleeping in these external sort of influences that you have. So you hit on something there that I think is super interesting. And this idea of these latent diseases that, for lack of a better term, that might be floating around, like whether it's autoimmune or some sort of virus or some sort of parasite. And I think there's this tendency, certainly when people first start paleo, there's this idea of, oh, wow, I didn't even, like you were saying, I didn't even know I had back pain, but I did. And now it's gone. And now I know, so you don't even know how poorly you feel. And I think it's interesting that there may be the same thing from this other perspective, like with the parasites or the viruses or whatever. And so I'm curious, how would you tell somebody to approach that? Is there like a specific panel, or just, hey, you know what, you just need to go to an infectious disease specialist and hit them up, or what would be your suggestion?
So this is the thing. I obviously track a lot of blood work and everything. So I get a lot of stuff done. I just started, one of the things that happened to me, and I'll just kind of go into it, and this is how I ended up coming up with this, is that in March of 2015, I had all my blood work run and all my hormone panels done and everything, and I was confirmed to be in menopause at that time. But they said, whatever it is that you're doing, keep it up, because we don't need to put you on hormone replacement therapy. But you're definitely in menopause. And so I was like, great. Well, we had Paleo. We're involved in another company called ID Life. Our company is ID Life Wellness. And so we had a big event with that. And then we moved on May the 8th. So this was middle of March is when all my stuff was done. I want to say it was around the 12th or something like that. And here I have, they're telling me I'm good. I don't need hormone replacement therapy. May 8th, we move into a house in Austin, Texas. And then about a week later, we went on a 10-day cruise, and we came back, and literally by June the 10th, I couldn't get out of bed. So that's how fast this severe mold exposure hit me. So I started doing a lot of research immediately, like all my symptoms, all my stuff, what was the deal, and why was this happening to me, and what have you. So I'm looking, and everything points to that I have a mold exposure. So I reach out, and we had a house in Kyle it's a long story, but we decided we needed to move into Austin. We were in Austin every single day. The commute was killing us. So we rented our house out in Kyle, and we decided to rent a house out in Austin. So this is a brand new landlord. We don't know him that well. And I go to him and I tell him, I think that this house has mold in it. And I ask him to please get it tested. And he goes above and beyond to tell me that there is absolutely no way that there's mold in that house, and that he's not going to test, and blah, 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 blah. So I start thinking, okay, I trusted him. And so I believed, oh, okay, then maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. So I go in middle of June, and I go and get I'm like, well, maybe it's a hormone, because the next thing is a hormone issue. So I go in and I get my hormones all checked, and I have 0 hormones. I mean, like literally nothing was registering. I had no testosterone, no estrogen, no progesterone, nothing. So they put me on hormone replacement therapy. They can't figure out how this happened in such a short period of time. I'm still kind of on that thing of thinking I have a severe mold exposure. So, but I kind of like let it go or whatever. And so I still can't really get out of bed that much. I'm pretty exhausted, but the hormones start making me feel better. So I get put on hormone replacement therapy in July of 2015. October 15th through November the 10th, I gained 28 pounds. Nothing has changed except I'm on hormone replacement therapy and have been now for 3 months. And so I'm like, I can't figure out what's happening. And I'm just like, what is going on? A friend of mine came down to Austin, and she's a hormone specialist, and we went out to dinner, and I started asking her some questions, and she's like, so what are you on? I tell her. And at the time I was on a cream, which was a combination of an estrogen and a testosterone cream. And she said, okay, I really think that you're probably there's a small minority of women that cannot take their estrogen and their testosterone together. She goes, you need to separate them by 12 hours. She goes, what's happening is your body doesn't know what to do with it, so it's storing it as fat. And I'm like, oh, fabulous, 28 pounds of fat. Wonderful.
Perfect, yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So it takes me literally, you guys, my doctor knows who I am. He knows what I know. He knows I'm big in biohacking. He knows I'm really big in understanding and knowing what's happening with my health. I'm the one that, forced him into getting labs that he didn't want to get. And Anyway,
Right.
so I start telling him it takes me 3 months to convince him to finally separate it, because at that point I finally just tell him, I am not going to continue to take this until you do this for me and you separate these.
Wow.
So he finally separates them after 3 months. He relents. And this is somebody, I'm an advocate. I like really heavily advocate for myself. I don't put up with a whole lot of stuff, but it just took all this time going back and forth with his nurse and everything. I said, well, you can talk about this office. You tell him to get on the phone with me now, because I'm not going to continue to do this with you. And then that's when he finally agreed. So he finally relented. He separated them. Voila. The next month I lost all the weight. And the thing is that, but in hindsight, looking back at it, I realized at this point, we're talking about the January of 2016, that I'm actually working from 8 in the morning to 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. I'm actually working at our PaleoFX office. I'm actually out of this house. Mm-hmm. So when I look back at it, I realized, I was actually away from the mold. And the only thing that I was there for was, sleeping for a few hours. And then I was back at it really early the next day and what have you. So I think it might have been a combination of both of them, but I really think the majority of it was I was away from that house. Because what happened is, as soon as summer rolled around and PaleoFX was over with, voila, I gained it back another 27 pounds. And so it was like, but that was because I was also at home. And again, I couldn't get out of bed. And so then I started really doing a lot of research, and I decided at that point to go in and get tested for mycotoxins. And sure enough, my mycotoxins were off the charts. I also had my heavy metal testing. That's another thing that I believe in too, is that heavy metals can really wreak havoc in your body. And my heavy metals were off the charts in mercury, aluminum, thallium, and cesium. And just so y'all know, cesium is rat poison.
Just for reference.
We were all like, wait, what?
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
We were like, what? Okay. So anyway, so I was off the charts on all of these, and it was really causing a lot of issues. And so whenever I started really figuring this out, we started making a plan to get out of this house. Mm-hmm. And realizing this is a mold issue, I started having to go back and forth with the landlord, which at that point, he had kind of showed his true colors, and we figured out how that he just like tried to cut corners on everything. Mm-hmm. And was just really, he was not somebody that was going to be honorable about that type of thing. So we had to kind of force the situation and force the move out, and that we were leaving, and that we would leave him alone and not sue him if he would just give back our deposit and let us out of our lease and give us a good reference. Mm-hmm. And so he did all of that. Mm-hmm. So we left. However, the people that moved into the house after us were aware that there was a mold issue. We did happen to know who they were, so we let them know. We were like, just so you know, you might want to be real careful about it. So it was really interesting. But this is the thing: I would go in, and if you're starting to have real severe fatigue issues and that type of thing, really start tracking how you feel. Start tracking how you sleep. Start tracking your hormones. I am a big proponent of, even if you feel amazing, even better for you to go and get your labs done, because then that's a benchmark for your doctor to know that's what your normal really is supposed to look like. This is when you feel amazing. This is when you are at your best. It is so important to have those, because being able to reverse engineer back to that is so much easier than if you don't have those. And unfortunately, I didn't have those. Right. So I didn't have anything until I started getting into the paleo thing. I didn't have anything to go by to be able to say, hey, this is what my real normal and what I really be being healthy feels like and looks like. So
yeah, I wish that I would have done my panels when I was like in my mid-20s, when I was in my prime. But yeah, it is tricky because you don't really know. It's like you're kind of chasing a moving target. So what do you do you use a certain kind of hormone panel, like Dutch test or any of that? Or do you just request a certain panel from your doctor?
I ask him for everything that I want. Because of course I had a thyroid issue that came up because of this severe mold exposure. So now I have hypothyroid and I'm Hashimoto's.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so this is nothing to mess around with. It kicked up an EBV virus, so that was another thing.
Wow.
And EBV is becoming very prevalent with regard to. I'm starting to really notice that a lot of people are having this EBV virus kicked up, and if you do a little bit of homework on this and do a little bit of research, you're going to find out more than likely you have EBV in your body. It's dormant. If you had any type of mono growing up, in like when you were in high school, when you were a teenager, or anything like that. I had 3 very severe cases of mono in high school. So it was, so I'm having to go through the protocols to get rid of the EBV virus and put it back into dormancy, because I don't think you can really completely get rid of it. But that's actually up for debate, I think, at the moment. But I think that it's probably something that you just put back into, remission, dormancy, what have you. But anyway, I've done all that work, and it's a lot, and it's not cheap.
Right.
So the big thing that I did was tell the doctor what labs I wanted run, and I started really following several people's lab work. If you go and look on some people, like particularly Elle Russ, she is very well versed in thyroid. So she will tell you what you need to be looking at and what that looks like. I was very fortunate that, I'm connected to a lot of people that are experts and everything, but this is the thing. Their websites are almost all free. Go and follow what they are. And then if you need to buy a book or whatever and spend $15, $20 to be able to look, and I highly recommend investing in that, because knowing what labs I needed and being able to tell my doctor, you're not testing for the right things. That was another 4 months. That was a 4-month battle with him over the fact that I knew I had a thyroid problem.
Right.
Wow.
And he just kept arguing with me. And I said to him, this is the thing. I'm not like a normal patient who doesn't know what I'm talking about. And his response back to me was, sometime I said, I come very educated and know a lot of the research. And he said, yeah, that can be to your own detriment sometimes. And I said, no, this is my thought process around that. I'm not the typical person that's coming in and wanting to be diagnosed with something. I'm wanting to know what the problem is so I can fix it.
Right.
I'm not just looking for something to hang something on and get a pill. I don't want any pills from you. I just want to fix what's wrong.
Right.
And so that was where things kind of came to a head with him. And I kept saying, you're not testing the right thyroid stuff, and I'm subclinical. And that's the thing too, is knowing all your symptoms and being able to label those out for a doctor and being able to tell the doctor, hey, these are all my symptoms and these symptoms all match such and such. I don't recommend being, going in every other month and having something new, obviously, because I'm not a hypochondriac, but the thing is at the end of the day, I knew a lot about what I was talking about. And so when I started telling him, I'm subclinical, you're not testing the right things. So I'm telling you, I'm not going to come up. TSH is not going to show you that I've got a problem with my thyroid because I'm subclinical.
Right.
Well, then finally, after 4 months, I finally got him to run the correct tests. He kept running the same ones over and over. But by the time that he started running them and he ran the right test, my TSH was screaming it was 5.8. And he was like, oh, yes, you do have a thyroid problem. Okay. I'm like, yeah, and still, that's not even the right number to go off of. That's still not the right way to figure out and diagnose a thyroid problem. But so that's where I'm such a huge advocate in people really doing their own homework and really advocating for themselves, is that it's not only your right, it's really your responsibility, because nobody cares more about your health than you do. Nobody.
Yeah, sure.
And there's nobody that can advocate for you, because nobody's in your body and nobody can feel what you're feeling. So it's really a big deal to know, to understand that and know. So
yeah, it is. It's kind of weird because like you in the paleo world, I feel like there's an underlying current of distrust for Western medicine, or not distrust, but like lack of faith, so to speak. You're like, you know what, guys, like I was on the internet for 20 minutes and I know more about this than you do, seemingly, and maybe that's not true, but like that's the feel you get. But Vanessa actually had a complication with a appendix rupture that landed her in the hospital for months a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mind blowing to me to have these conversations with these guys. And like, fortunately, we were in Santa Monica at a very good hospital, and and probably about the best situation you could be in. And it was still just like fighting tooth and nail to get them to see another potential beyond what they thought was going on. They had a preconceived notion of what was taking place, and they would not listen. I got my aha or my told you so moment like 2 months into it, which was pretty benign and like actually kind of anticlimactic, but like I got it. And I was like, see, like you guys, you got to just listen to what we're saying. So I'm curious to kind of shift focus a little bit here, because you've really been through the ringer with this and this is, but I think that there's a lot of folks who probably could identify with a lot of what you're saying. And what I'm just wondering, like, where along this timeline you started with the plant medicine and how that has interplayed with your sort of traditional Western medicine route.
So I have been doing plant medicine for 3 years. It actually started the summer when all of this started going down, actually. And quite frankly, I think the plant medicine actually saved me from being so completely depressed and so completely feeling completely helpless. And I can't, instead of having that victim mindset, it was, okay, we think about things that in terms of if something good happens to us, we don't question it. We're just like, yes, that's awesome. Right. And we deserve it. But when something bad happens to us, we question that and think, why should this be happening to us? And that kind of gave me that perspective, is that, I should be grateful through everything, because everything is a learning experience, and everything is this process of understanding who I am and how I am and what I am in this world and what I can offer through. So the thing is that my experience, while it sucked going through it, is an experience that I've actually learned from and been able to help other people through and help other people gain perspective. And most of that comes from the fact that I was doing plant medicine through this entire process, and that I was integrating what I was learning through that process. Is that, every decision that I make makes me who I am. And that culminates all the way back through the very first decision I ever made in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And so when you start really thinking about things in those terms, that everything is cumulative, and then it's qualitative if you make the right decisions, and then it can be what's happening in your life can be because you made the wrong choice, and that's just that. And the only way to fix that is going back and trying to figure out where you went wrong and trying to fix it from there. And the thing is it may not ever be where you ever want it to be, and that's just something you have to be okay with. Mm-hmm. And the thing is coming to terms with all of that is hard, but I think when I start really realizing through the whole process of going through plant medicine and learning the lessons and trying to integrate them into my life, is really understanding that I am a minor little particle of this entire, universe and everything, but my minor little particle has its place, and that I have, I have a purpose here, and that everything that I do and say and decision that I make is part of that purpose. And if I'm not mindful about those things, then my purpose kind of gets squandered a little bit. And so so through that process has really made me understand that, my health issues, while it's really sucked, have been part of my purpose. They've been part of what's made things where I can help other people and hopefully get them through a situation a lot faster than what I went through, because they've got some shortcuts to take and some, hacks that might help them be able to get to their answer a lot quicker than, what happened for me. And and if if that's the case, and I can spare one person, excess time in wallowing in, poor health, then that's been worth it.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you, which is just really beautiful, is that if my suffering can, end or at least decrease another suffering, then my suffering is a gift that I'm willing to, I'm willing to bear this cross, so to speak. So I think that's such a beautiful way to be about things, because I do think you're right. So many people get hung up on, why is this happening to me, instead of why is this happening for me? And I have no doubt that all of this experience has given you such a richer grasp of this subject matter, in which that you are then going to get to share with this audience in your Paleo FX community, and also just your inner circle, the people that are in your life. And that's such a beautiful gift that you give them.
Agreed. And the thing is like I said, if I hadn't been doing plant medicine, I don't know that I could have made it through it. And I don't know that I could have come through with a positive thought process around it. I think it would have been, I would like to think that I could. I do know that before, obviously we lost our daughter not a little over 9 years ago. And I'm a pretty positive and upbeat person naturally. And so, through that process, I came to a lot of peace with the fact that she passed away. And she was, the biggest catalyst for everything that we do. And so, trying to, have that mindset through that process, and understanding that it was her time to go, even though it wasn't good for me. The timing was not good for me at all. Right. It was part of what her purpose here on earth was for, and she lived out her purpose on a daily basis, and her purpose is still continuing on through what we do, and through the fact that her life and her legacy gets told over and over again, and people know about what she did and how she impacted other people. And so but that whole piece with doing plant medicine really solidified my peace in her being gone and in what we were doing.
Yeah, I can totally get that. So I'm curious, because I'm sure there's, Adam and I, we're from Northern California. We're from pretty hippie communities. So, if we talk about our plant medicine experiences or our psychedelic experiences, it's like, yeah, whatever. Like, obviously, like that's kind of almost the way we grew up, and sort of the I don't know. It's not that big of a leap for us, but I love hearing from you. I mean, your mom, you're from Texas. Like, this is such a great, profound, important thing for people to hear from people like you that, represent a different sect of the world that could really probably benefit from these medicines, but wouldn't identify with the kind of person who does these. So right. I would love for you, if you could just say to a listener out there, if they're considering it, if they see themselves maybe in this position, or they resonate with something that you've said, what are some of the fundamental things that helped you decide to go ahead and move forward with trying that?
Well, again, like everything else, a lot of research and really understanding what it is that I was going through. A lot of people, and the thing is that I can tell you, even doing a lot of the research and talking to people, and then of course, we've had panels at Paleo FX with people that have done plant medicines for quite some time before Keith and I decided to actually dip our toes into that. And the thing is that, so even when what we were expecting it didn't end up being what we were expecting. And so I think going into something like plant medicine, if you've never been around any, one of the things that I have really gotten very steeped into since starting plant medicine is the healing community, like the energy healing community. And a lot of people see that as so woo. And the thing is that when you start doing plant medicines, you will understand that all we are is energy. That's all we are. And the energy is no different than anything else. It can be positive or it can be negative. There's really two ways for it to be. And so when you think of things in terms of that, and that we just need to heal all of the energy that's in our bodies, and so that it's positive energy. The thing is, we're going to be hit with negative things. It's just the way, that's life. It's part of life. But being able to learn and understand how to pass that energy through us as quickly as possible is the way that we keep ourselves not only mentally healthy, but we also keep ourselves physically healthy. Because honestly, I've come to the realization that what's happened to us, and that most of disease comes from a state of trauma that's stored somewhere in our body that we have not released and that we're holding on to. And the thing is that you can see this all through nature, is that animals, when they are traumatized, they immediately throw themselves either on the ground and start shaking to rid themselves of that energy, or they just will completely shake. So like, you notice when you pet your dog shakes. Your dog is shaking that energy that you have created in their body. And sometimes the energy is too much for them to absorb. So they need to shake it off. That's what they're doing. And the thing is that we don't have any physical way of really doing that. As humans, we don't really physically shake like that and do that kind of thing. So we started, working with people in EMDR and that type of thing to try to rid our bodies of those traumas. And the plant medicine is something that's helpful. And what I realized in going through all of this and understanding and learning and meeting energy healers is how much this is needed and how many people actually need this. So going kind of back to your question, if you believe that this might be something that's calling to you, it does have to call to you. It's not something you can just decide to go do on a whim. It needs to be taken with reverence. It needs to be taken with respect. It needs to be approached with both of those, reverence and respect. And it needs to be approached seriously, because this is serious work. It's not easy. It is not a joyride. It is not going and getting high. A lot of people think that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to hallucinate, and, I'm going to go do psychedelics, and I'm going to see visions, and I'm, whatever, and it's all fun and games. It's not. This is really difficult, very hard work that you do to really clear your body of past trauma, clear your entire energy field of what needs to be cleared for you to be an optimized, happy, positive, productive human being. And the thing is that these plant medicines are the way that we do that shaking off. That's part of that process. Some other things like EMDR are things for people that are maybe they physically can't do plant medicines, or they're afraid to do plant medicines, or they are it's just not something that's calling to them, but they do have something traumatic in their past that they really do feel like they need to clear. Then EMDR might be the way to do those things and do some Reiki and energy healing around that. But at the end of the day, we all have trauma that we're going to probably need to clear. That there were things that were in my body, that were traumas that were stored and that were causing problems. I ended up with skin cancer, actually, from a trauma that happened years ago. And when we cleared it, I also did, a natural process through healing the skin cancer. But the whole thing is that I don't feel like if I had not healed the underlying issue, the underlying emotional trauma that went with that and where it came from, that I probably wouldn't have had as good an outcome with my with the natural remedy that I chose and the natural treatment that I chose. And so if you're interested in things like that, I would just do as much homework as possible and find the thing that really speaks to you, that really resonates with you. And, the thing is that maybe ayahuasca, that may not be, maybe, something else, and that's okay. Whatever works for you is what's going to work for you. I would just really, like I said, go, approach it with reverence and respect and a very open mind, because you don't get necessarily what you want out of it. You get what you need. And that's the thing. I've always just gotten what I needed, and it's not always what I've expected. And so, and the thing is that it's been okay, because I went into it very openly and understood I was going to get what I needed. And I have.
I feel like we could wrap it up on that, and that kind of explains you. Maybe not what you want, but definitely what you need. Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. This has been great. And tell folks where they can find more information about PaleoFX.
You can find more information about PaleoFX at paleofx.com. That's PALEOF as in Frank, X as in X-ray.com. You can follow us on all of our social media on Facebook, and then following me, I am Zero Gravity Soul. On Instagram and on Twitter, it's ZER0 Gravity Soul, and then on Facebook, it's just Zero Gravity Soul. So,
awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on the show, and this has been excellent. It was such a wide variety of topics, and I can tell that you're just so passionate about this contribution you're making. So thank you for making that contribution.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. And as always, if you did and you've yet to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, today is the day. Now is the time. Head on down to your iTunes, just scroll down the feed. All you have to do is open up the feed for your iTunes feed and scroll halfway down, leave the 5 stars, write a review, bam, it's over.
Hit send.
You never have to listen to us say this again and think, oh man, I'm the one they're talking to.
It's true.
You can with all clarity of consciousness say, I've done my job.
They're not talking about me.
They're not talking about me.
It's true. Unless you wanted to move to Canada,
open
a new iTunes account and leave another review there, or opposite if you're currently in Canada.
Yes.
We appreciate both those things as well.
Wherever you are. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks
Bye.
again. Bye.
And I